Hello, folks. Today we're going to discuss how to work on and complete assignment number 4 called Ecological Niches. So you'll find that assignment within your Unit 1 tab in Classroom down below. And of course, as usual, there will be some instructions here on how to complete the activity. This activity is going to be a little bit different because we are going to have you complete this task in your digital textbook. So I'm going to go over the steps to complete or at least log into the digital textbook. So it says click the link below to log into your Clever account. Click the BioZone textbook icon, and it says open the Living Earth textbook to page 10. Read the information and complete questions for activity 4 on pages 10 through 12. Click the question mark icon to enter your answers and submit when finished. Mark as done in Google Classroom when you're ready to turn in. So this task is all about ecological niches. We're going to learn that a niche is basically the role that an organism plays within its ecosystem. We're defined terms like the fundamental niche, the realized niche, and realize that competition and other factors, predation and whatnot, might affect the niche. So there are two links that might be a great help for you to complete this activity to make you familiar a little bit more about a niche. One is clicked right here. It's a Khan Academy link. And again, I am going to recommend that you read it, you understand it. It's not too much reading for you to go over, but just get an idea of what a niche is. And a good way to think about a niche is it's the way of life for that organism, the conditions, the resources, the interactions that it needs within its ecosystem. Um, like a fish here, a fish needs to live in a particular salinity, a particular pH, a particular temperature that it can tolerate, and then the food that it eats. I can't throw a shark into a lake because that lake does not reach the niche of that shark. He can't survive in fresh water, for instance. So this is a nice little short Khan Academy tab to read. There's also a 1 minute YouTube video you can play about a niche just to kind of visualize things and see it a little bit more clearly. So I recommend you do both before you start the assignment itself. Now to start the assignment, you do want to log into your Clever account, so you do need to hit the Clever login. Mine's already logging myself in. Yours, you might have to log in with your Active Directory, which will take you to a login page, which is simply your district email and login address. Your username at sbcusd.k12.ca.us. If you have a hard time logging in, please add a classroom comment, and I will give you what is called I'll help you and give you a code that will log you into this. But our book should be somewhere on your screen, like so. It's called the BioZone ebook. Go ahead and click it open. All right, so once you do click the link, you are going to have a dashboard very similar to mine. Your learning content, you're going to have a library of books. You may or may not have these three textbooks. You do have a homework tab, which will have some assignments I do assign through this textbook. So your book is right here. It's called The Living Earth. So you would go ahead and click the Living Earth tab. And the assignment says it is on page 10. So a good rule of thumb to find your pages, you can go up to this little area right here and go to page. So I'm going to hit page 10. And it takes me to this particular page. Now, I do recommend you bookmark pages. You could do so right here for assignments that you're working on, just so it's easy to come back, especially if you get lost on a page that you're on. And I can always hit the bookmarks, and there's that page that I just bookmarked. Also, you can highlight some text. Get a little pencil in the upper right corner you can use to highlight if some work that makes sense. But this assignment is all about a niche. So the niche is the fundamental role of an organism. Basically, it's its position in its environment, the range of conditions on which it needs to exist and live. So some organisms have a niche where their job is to be food for others. Their niche is to provide food for other animals. For instance, a rabbit is food for coyotes, is food for large birds of prey. That is part of its niche. Um, so I would want you to read these examples and these pictures here. And to respond to the questions, you do want to go down and hit the question mark. Your first question is going to say, name an organism in your area and define what type of environment it is commonly found in. So you can name any organism that we know of in California. Any. It could be a type of bird, it could be a type of mammal, and explain, well, where does it live? What environment does it live in? So that could be any sort of animal you can think of, or even a plant you can think of. Now, part B is what adaptations allow it to live in that environment. You can use some of these adaptations that they explain up here, make it more specific towards the animal that you've chosen or the plant that you've chosen. Um, and then, what do you know about your organism's niche? Its job, its role. What does it do in that ecosystem? What does it need to survive? What type of food is it? Is it food for others? Does it need water? Does it need sunlight? Um, does it need a specific temperature it can thrive in? I mean, those are all types of examples you can put for this question here. So to respond to that question, you just hit the question mark, and you would write your answers here. Um, you can change the font, the bold. You can add bullet points if you like. You can even add an image that you might have on your computer. And when you're finished, you would hit submit, and that would give me your answers to look at and grade when it comes to time. Next page is looking at real world examples of these of a niche in play. I'm just gonna make my screen a little bit bigger. But organisms can always exploit their niche. You have a niche, your fundamental niche, which are the conditions you need to survive. But sometimes something in the environment prevents you from reaching that. So you might have seen barnacles before if you've ever been to our beaches and our oceans. Basically, the larvae settle on rocks and they can't move after they settle. So there's two barnacles on the Scottish coast, the acorn barnacle, which we're going to label with AB, and the polystellate barnacle, which we're going to label SB. They do coexist in the same kind of general environment. They kind of layer their distribution, where the AB tends to be in the lower region of the shore, more like towards the water in the low tide, where the SB tends to go more towards the higher level of the shore, where it's a little bit more dry and less water. So you can kind of see that what happened was they experimentally removed the AB from the lower shore. So they took the AB out of its environment, and what ends up happening is that SB rolls into closer to the water, where they were typically up away from the water, higher up on the rocks. They kind of drifted more into the lower shore. Now they did another experiment where the SB were removed from the upper shore, so kind of up here, and the AB did not move into that location. So you want to think, well, if I have a competitor and it's removed, am I going to go into that environment if that's going to meet my niche? Or if my niche is already met, am I going to stay where I'm currently at? I don't know if that was kind of clear, but that leads to question A. Which of the barnacles exploits its niche? That means they already meet their niche in this without any experimentation going on. Letter B. What physical factors limit the range of this barnacle? Letter number 3, describe the range of the fundamental niche for SB, and was it fully exploited? Again, I'll be discussing this a little bit more or have during our Google Meet. But the key to this experiment is based on this case study, what can you say about the presence of other organisms that might affect the distribution of another? How does other species affect the ability for these populations to be distributed? There's a little link right here if you chose to, if you wanted to actually go into a resource hub for this assignment. They do talk a little bit more about these barnacles feeding. You don't necessarily need to go to that, but again, it's another resource about the real science going on with experiments like this. And then your last set of parts for this assignment is page 12. Again, you do have a little link you can click to for a resource. Anything that's kind of yellow, you're able to access. But we're looking at two parameciums, and we want to find out and make a prediction about a niche. So, can two species with the same niche live together? So he made an experiment. This guy G.F. Gauss, two separate paramecium. They need the same resources to survive, and you can kind of see over time what's happened to that population, and then eventually it flattens out. In the second paramecium, same thing. Population rises, then it flattens out. So in his second experiment, he put these two populations together and let them grow over time. So you want to predict what would happen with this experiment. Would these two paramecium populations rise like they did separated? Maybe you think the population will rise faster. Maybe you think the population won't rise at all. Maybe you think one of these species would go extinct or whatnot, because they do both require the same resources, type of food, type of water, and temperature. So they want you to go to the resource hub, which again is this link right here, and you want to look at the experiment itself, which you'll find um, it's called population density right here. And you'll learn about a little bit of the experiment, what took place, and you want to figure out, well, what happened? Were these able to coexist, or did one of the paramecium eventually population crash? And that leads us to Gauss's law, which is competitive exclusion. What that basically states is that species that compete for the same resources cannot coexist. Basically, what happens is you will compete for the same resource, and that will narrow down your ability to be part of that niche. When you have this overlapping of resources, this causes a population issue to occur. Um, so I know niche is kind of a broad term to discuss and go over. Um, but the niche does affect our ability for populations to rise or fall. And again, it completely depends on resource availability and um, whatnot. So thank you and enjoy.